Okay, so we're talking the World Cup today. And I say we because it's only me, but I feel like my people are with me in spirit. Uh, I'm a big soccer fan, or as they call it in the rest of the world, football. And the World Cup is coming, and it's a very, very exciting time. And there are some specific topics that go along with the World Cup that I think makes the World Cup a more grand event than any American sport that's supposedly the world champion as well as the Olympics. So the first aspect I think that affects it is the social aspect. The social aspect is super important because first of all, when the World Cup is in a place, it is meant to highlight the culture of the host nation. This year, the host nation is Russia, and there's been a lot of controversy and things dealing with Russia, but as well as their relationship with the United States, the status and questions about the current president Vladimir Putin, and they're very very different things. So a lot of social things will be found. For instance, today I had a conversation with someone who knew some people who are in Russia currently, and they were talking about how different the culture is in Russia, how they're so much more quote unquote aggressive. They like order and organization of their people who function in the street. So like random recordings in the street and random pictures in the street is frowned upon because well, there's a lot of people that are coming to Russia. So I can sort of understand why Russian security is in a state of higher alert because of that. So you have to deal with culture as far as food, lodging, interacting with people. And I think that makes it really interesting. I know one of the social things that people like to see, and this specifically goes with the World Cup, is the association with women. And that normally people, when they watch on TV, they do notice the women. I'm sure they notice the men, but it's the men's World Cup. So they notice the women and they kind of sort of look to see, well, how attractive is this woman from this nation and this woman from that nation. So it becomes a little bit of a beauty contest as well. And I think that's a very interesting dynamic that it takes on because the women are kind of in a respectful way as possible manner I can put it, the trophies of the nation. Like if your women are beautiful, people tend to look at your nation in a way that is passing judgment. Like what can I get from that? So like if you think about nations with beautiful women, they talk about like Swedish models, and they talk about maybe Latinas in specific places like Brazil or Colombia, or if you go to specific places like maybe some French women or I don't know Italian women, stuff like that. So I think that matters. So we'll get to see a lot of social things start to come out in the news, and I hope people definitely look for that because it does tell you a little bit about the country. The second aspect is the business aspect, which you'll see is a lot of advertising from global multinational companies at the stadiums and on the television because football does advertising very differently as there's no stoppages in the games. They have advertising normally around the field and maybe on banners on the screen. So we'll have the opportunity to be introduced to new products, specifically Russian products. Maybe we'll learn some Russian, specifically business language things. You also have the opportunity to see which American and other nations have decided to invest their money in one of the largest events of the year. I mean, it takes another 4 years before the next World Cup. So this is their opportunity to get on the world stage, knowing that almost 200 nations are going to be looking at their brand, and so the money part is there. This is also an opportunity for Russian people in Russia to open their doors to new revenue from external sources who would like to advertise. So you have a new brand of clothing or soft drink that will show up in the World Cup to advertise, and I think that changes the dynamic, and it allows the people to be exposed to more things. It's more significant than anything in social media because it's real. It's a consumable thing in most cases, and once people start to consume things, they form an opinion and they develop relationships with it, and then most things can shoot off from there. So there will be some star from the World Cup that will promote a new brand because of their relationship at the World Cup, and that could propel them to do things that they may have never ever imagined they would do. The next aspect that I think is important of the World Cup is the political aspect. I highlighted and mentioned a little bit before about the world's opinion about Vladimir Putin and specifically the Russian state. I think this is something where the people in Russia will take it in an opportunity to specifically get out some political things that they felt may have been quieted or has been sort of swept under the rug. Now, obviously, there will be things that will be swept under the rug politically, maybe some political dissidents, maybe some political opposition. But when they're in that stadium, when they're watching a team, their team, whatever team, play, you have 30, I think it's 32 nations this year, 32 nations where if there's a political thing they want to put out there, they buy their ticket to the game, they have their one day, they make their sign, they show that sign. And again, almost 200 nations are watching this, so it's broadcast around the world. So just because the specific nation, the host nation, Russia, may hide that advertising or that political message that they're trying to get out there, has an opportunity to get out there. So if there's something that, I don't know, like a music group like Pussy Riot, that's a Russian band that had their political discourse with the Russian government, the Russian TV might not show it, but there are 150 plus nations who are filming and broadcasting that game live. In most cases, and I'm sure there's like maybe a 5-second delay, but they're posting those games live. And so that means that there's a chance that 150 plus nations will get to see, hey, you know, they abuse children, or there's an issue with human exploitation or organ donation or something. There may be a political thing that's happening that these people have an opportunity to put out in a public forum that, you know, can be captivating. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if someone ran on the field. That might be the last time they ever run on the field, but I wouldn't be surprised if they ran on the field and did whatever political message they had to make sure their people are taken care of. I mean, there's a lot of nations here, and this is the world stage. And so how you have another 4 years before you have an opportunity to get on the world stage, and a lot of these nations may never make it back to the World Cup. So this is their one chance to let people know about that. And I think that's a pretty significant thing about the World Cup specifically. So this is obviously shorter, but because it's just me, and I look forward to a future dialogue. So if other people want to get on here, there's a slew of topics that I have that I'd love to hear other people's opinions on and to touch on. I know I'm a huge soccer fan, a football fan, specifically because I lived in England, and it touched my heart because it really is a beautiful game. It's a very technical game. I love sports in general, but just the passion and the fervor and the love that people have for football, specifically during the World Cup, is something that I've never ever imagined I could feel the energy like I've felt when I've watched the last few World Cups. And I think it's a really, really big deal. And even though FIFA has its issues with corruption and stuff like that, I think the spirit of the game and the event is something that's really good for brotherhood and positive nationalism, where nations come together to support 22 guys, 23 guys who represent their colors and their country. And a lot of times, if you look at those teams are like a rainbow. There's black, white, brown, and everything in between for people of skin color. And I think this is a really, really huge opportunity to get that that image of them out. Like, for instance, there's a lot of Latin American countries that people didn't think black people existed. Or if you see some white people in a nation that we assumed was black, or vice versa. And I think it's really, really cool that the World Cup provides that forum for that. And even though there is racism and there is prejudice and there are issues with negative nationalism, the World Cup has the opportunity to give us some positive nationalism. So into the segment 4, I want to specifically focus on predictions. Like, some people may or may not know soccer, football, etc. But I think it's really worth doing. I think it's cool as the NCAA bracket, because a lot of times people don't know anything about the NCAA and they still do the bracket. So I think doing a World Cup bracket is really, really fun. And I would hope that people would try doing that in the future. And since the World Cup is upon us, you got about 2 days to probably get a bracket in. But if you don't get a chance to do it for this one, maybe you do it for the confederations and individual national or regional cups. So, like, the South America Cup, the North America Cup, which is CONCACAF Gold Cup, the Euros, which is the European Cup, the African Cup of Nations, and you have an international cup for Asia and Oceania. So definitely take a chance and look at it. I personally think some of the most attractive football comes from Europe and South America, but maybe you look at that and you see some different stuff, because I know there's some quality teams that are in Africa as well. So we're gonna go into predictions. Group A, right? Group A is Russia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Uruguay. And in my opinion, Uruguay is the strongest team in this group. So I believe that Uruguay will finish on top of the group and advance into the knockout round. And second place team would be Russia. And the reason I do pick Russia is because they're the host nation. There's an interesting stat. ESPN will probably put it out there, or Fox Sports, one of those sports channels will put it out there, that host nations advance almost 90-something% of the time. And so we'll throw a little match fixing in there, and I'll say Russia comes out and finishes number 2 in the group. And then followed by Russia is Egypt, and I think Egypt will do well. I wouldn't be shocked if Egypt doesn't finish second, because Mohamed Salah has had a fantastic football campaign this year, and if he can will them, I think he could possibly will them into the stage, but I'm going to still go with Russia as second. And finally, Saudi Arabia. I don't really know much about the Saudi national soccer team, but I do know that their kits are pretty sweet. So we go from there. The next one is Group B, and Group B has Morocco, Iran, Portugal, and Spain. In my opinion, I believe that the Spanish national team, which is a really, really good team, will win this group, and the second place team will be Portugal with Cristiano Ronaldo, and then the third place team would be I'm gonna go with Morocco, an African nation, and followed by Iran. And I just think that Spain is the strongest team. They have some of the best players in the world. Portugal is an up-and-coming team. They won the Euros 2 years ago. But I don't know. I think I can see them beating the other two teams, but I don't see them beating Spain. And so that's why I would place them below Spain. So in Group C, we have France, Australia, Peru, and Denmark. France is probably the best team in this group, and probably one of the best teams in the world. They have a really young, solid group of guys. Like, all 23 guys probably could start on any major team in the world. And so I picked them to finish first. The second place team is always a very interesting thing for this one, but I specifically am going to pick Denmark. I think the Danes will do well in this, and I think it'll actually be a tie, and they'll advance on goal differential, because I think Peru will finish third, and I think Australia will finish fourth. So moving into Group D, I have Argentina, Iceland, Croatia, and Nigeria. Now, if you know anything about soccer, I mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo in Portugal, and they're in Group B. In Group D, Argentina has one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world, maybe ever, and Lionel Messi. And I choose definitely Argentina to finish first in this group. And the second place team I actually choose is Croatia. I think the Croats are pretty good. They had a bad World Cup last World Cup in Brazil, but I think they'll be better. I think Nigeria will finish third. The Super Eagles have one of the most attractive kits in the entire world for this specific this World Cup, and I think they'll probably do well. So if there's a tie or anything like that, it's either Nigeria or Croatia, but I'm gonna pick Croatia over Nigeria. And the fourth place team is Iceland, and Iceland is an interesting watch. Specifically because I had an opportunity to go there, and I made a joke that I'm the only black guy in Iceland. But also, they really they have a really like a camaraderie nationalism thing that's really cool. Like if they win, I hope that their fans get a chance to do the big clap that they do. I think that's a pretty sweet thing that they do, and they have really quality players. But I still pick Iceland to finish last in Group D. So. If we move to Group E is Brazil, Brazil, Costa Rica, Serbia, and Switzerland is in Group E. If you know anything about any football in the world, you know Brazil is one of the greatest nations in the world when it comes to team football. And I will not stray away from that ideology or mindset because I choose Brazil to finish first in their bracket, in their group. And the second place team I choose is Switzerland. I think the Swiss have a really solid team. There's a lot of really good players that I've seen play on TV in some of the top leagues in Europe, and their guys are really solid. The next place team is I would choose Costa Rica. I've seen Costa Rica play some as well. They had a pretty decent last World Cup. I don't know how well they'll do, but I think they'll finish third in the group, and I think the Serbs and Serbia will finish fourth in that group in Group E. Moving to Group F. Group F is Germany, Mexico, Sweden, and South Korea. If you do know anything about World Cups, you know that Germany won the last World Cup, and Germany is an absolute powerhouse monster of a country when it comes to soccer. And so I choose Germany to finish first in that group. And then, and I had a friend who got on me. He's like, "Come on, man, are you serious?" But I'm choosing the Japanese to finish second in the group. They've normally shown well in World Cups, and I think the Japanese will finish second. And in third place, I believe Mexico will finish third. But I think Mexico and Japan are interchangeable. But I'm really not convinced by what I've seen from Mexico recently. And finally, Sweden. I think Sweden will finish fourth. And that will be the end of Group F. Moving on to Group G, you have Belgium, Panama, Tunisia, and England. Belgium is in their golden years. They have some of the best players in the entire world. Like, they have really solid, good players. And so I choose the Belgians to finish first in the group. I choose the English to finish second in the group. The Three Lions are always an interesting group, and they've been waiting since 1966 to win another one. And they swear this is their year. And I think they have a quality squad, but I don't think they'll win overall. Not to predict way too far in the future, but I think they'll do fairly well. And the third place, I choose Panama. I think Panama will finish third in the group. And finally, Tunisia will finish fourth in the group. In the last group, Group H, is Poland, Senegal, Colombia, and Japan. I think this is a very interesting group because it's not a group of death if you know anything about like the Champions League and stuff like that. But I think this is a pretty significant group because most of the teams are really close. And I think that specifically that the Poles will actually finish first. I think Poland will finish first in the group, but I don't think they'll like outright win it. I think it'll be like a goal differential thing. I don't see them winning all the games in the group. I think Colombia will win. Will come in second. The Colombians are a pretty solid group. They're passionate about their soccer, and I think they will do well. I'm looking forward to whatever dances that these guys break out when they score goals. I think the Japanese will finish third in this group, and I think Senegal will finish fourth. Now, I may have misspoken in Group F. I think I meant to say South Korea would finish second. Instead, I think I said Japan. But just for the correction, for Group F, I have Germany, South Korea, Mexico, and Sweden. And for Group H, the final group, I have Poland finishing first, Colombia finishing second, Japan finishing third, and Senegal finishing fourth. Now, if you move on to the next levels of how this thing works, the winner from A1, which would be Uruguay, would play the winner from the second place team from B2, which would be Portugal. And from that game, I would pick, because of Cristiano, I pick Portugal to win that game in that first quarter, that knockout stage game. And the next game, it would be the winner of C. The winner of C for me is France. And so that would be France versus the second place team in D, which is Croatia. And so France versus Croatia, I choose France to win that group. And then moving on to the next level is the winner of Group E. And the winner of Group E is Brazil. And so Brazil would play the second place team in Group F, which would be South Korea. And I choose Brazil to beat South Korea. And the next game would be the winner of Group G. And the winner of Group G in my eye was Belgium. And Belgium would play the second place team in Group H, which would be Colombia. And I choose Belgium to win versus Colombia. And so moving on to the next level is you have the winner of B. And the winner of B for me was Spain. And Spain would play against the second place team from Group A, which would be Russia. And I choose Spain to win that. I choose Spain to beat Russia. And the winner of Group D, which is Argentina, would play the second place team from Group C, which is Denmark. And I choose Argentina to win that game. The winner of Group F is Germany. And the winner, Germany would play the second place team from Group E, which is Switzerland. And I choose the Germans. And finally, the winner of Group H, which is Poland, would play the second place team from Group G, which is the English, and I choose the English. And so moving to the next round of games, you have Portugal versus France, where I would choose France. And then you have Brazil versus Belgium, and I choose Brazil. And then you have which one? Oh, God, I lost myself. I'm sorry, I apologize. Spain versus Argentina, which would be an amazing matchup. And I choose Messi, so I choose Argentina to win that game. And then finally, I have Germany versus England, and I choose the Germans. And then for the semifinals of the World Cup, you have France versus Brazil, which, this one was really hard for me to choose, but I choose France. And you have Argentina versus Germany. And I just think the Germans are too deep, so I choose Germany. And then the final of the World Cup is France versus Germany, and I choose the French to win the World Cup. It would be, I think, their second. Yeah, I think it's their second World Cup they'd win if they do indeed win the World Cup, and I think that makes it really, really awesome if they do happen to win the World Cup. And I think they have a really great group of guys that where they probably can go on a run and maybe win another World Cup after this one. So now that the predictions are done, I'm gonna move on to the next big thing again because this is focused on the World Cup. Is the next World Cup. So the next World Cup is in Qatar, and I believe first of all that World Cup is going to be played in the winter time instead of the summertime because of the issues with the summertime heat that exist in 2022. So we'll see. I know in Qatar there was a lot of talk about stadiums with a lot of air conditioning and stuff like that. A friend and I were talking, and we think that this is a really dangerous thing because this might be the first World Cup where you actually worry about someone dying in the World Cup and from actual playing. There's also some rumors that Qatar might lose this World Cup because there was some corruption stuff associated with it. And there's a backup plan for if the World Cup doesn't happen in Qatar. I know England put themselves in the mix to be the nation to host because they have tons of stadiums in England, so they could automatically host the World Cup right away. The United States also put their names in the hat because we have tons and tons of stadiums, as I'm an American, and we could host the World Cup as well. Now, speaking of the Americans and the World Cup, as we talk about next, the United States has a joint bid with Mexico and Canada to host the World Cup, where the final would be in the United States, but group games would be in Canada and Mexico as well as the United States. And I think that's a very interesting concept because soccer, football has been growing in North America a whole lot, and I think a unified front behind that would be really cool. The next closest bid that I've heard for the 2026 World Cup is with Morocco, which I think would be really cool. There's been some controversy. There's been some Americans who've come out and said, hey, it would be cooler if Morocco did it, because when the World Cup is hosted in a nation that's never hosted it, it exposes the world to this nation. It normally benefits the nation in most cases. Sometimes it doesn't. There's some corrupt infrastructure stuff that goes on with the stadiums, but it normally puts a global stage in there, and it allows those nations to start allowing multinational companies to learn more and have an opportunity to work there. So, in my opinion, I do hope the World Cup is the United States. The bid is won by the United States for the 2026 World Cup. I believe the announcement comes out tomorrow, the day before the World Cup. And I do hope the United States gets it. But if it doesn't, I take the perspective of the World Cup as an opportunity to travel. I wanted to go to Russia for this World Cup. I wanted to go to Brazil for the last World Cup. If the World Cup indeed goes to Morocco instead of the United States, or if, we'll focus on that. If it goes to Morocco, I'd love to go there. I understand it's a Muslim nation, but I think that would be really cool to head to North Africa and see, what's going on in Morocco. If it is in the United States, I'd be excited about the opportunity to go to Mexico to watch a game, maybe in the Azteca, or going to Canada and watching some games in Toronto or Vancouver. And I think that would be really, really cool. I've been to a couple of national team events for some cups, and they've been an amazing events. And I think the World Cup is one of those things that brings people together. So as we get closer to the end of the podcast, I hope you enjoyed it. The next podcast I believe I'm going to do is about international travel, and I hope that you are there, and I hope to have a co-host and a guest. I have some questions that I've worked on to make sure this thing is fun. And with that said, I thank you for listening to me, and I hope that you have the most fantastic day ever. And hopefully we can grow this. I think this is a we thing, so I'm speaking from my inner being to your inner being and saying, let's come together and put some stuff out here. I'd love to have students and friends and family tell me and tell the world what they do. So